I became the manager and lost myself within 90 days, while everyone congratulated me. Here is what they didn't see. You finally got the promotion, the title, the responsibility you worked years for, expecting to feel accomplished. But here is the uncomfortable truth. Mid-level management doesn't elevate you. It traps you between two worlds where neither side thinks you belong. In this video, I will show you 6 silent pressures that crush middle-level managers based on what I watched break good people in real organizations, not what leadership books romanticize about management. Because the promotion you wanted is not broken. The impossible position it put you in. Leadership content sells influence, impact, empowerment, reality demands, impossible meditating, constant translating, absorbing everyone's frustration without outlet. And pressure 4, that's the one that made me question if I was cut out for leadership at all. Coming up, every pressure I'm about to share focuses on what mid-level managers actually face daily, not what gets celebrated in promotion announcements. Because the hardest part of middle management is not the work, it is the emotional labor nobody prepared you for. The first silent pressure of middle management is that you become the translator nobody thanks. Every day you are converting executive vision into team reality, strategy into tasks, targets into timelines, PowerPoint into people's actual lives, and you are constantly translating between two worlds that don't speak the same language. From the top, you hear big goals, tight deadlines, shifting priorities. From the bottom, you hear real constraints, real fatigue, and real human limits. And you are the one standing in the middle trying to make both sides understand each other without either side exploding. Here is why this destroys you. When things go well, nobody notices the translation. But when things go wrong, both sides blame you. Leadership says, why didn't the team execute better? And the team says, why did you agree to something so unrealistic? You observe frustration from both directions. You become the emotional shock observer for the system. When you are alone in the role, you carry everyone's disappointment with no place to put it. When you are supported, leadership acknowledges that this position is structurally impossible sometimes, and that the friction is not the personal failure. The difference is not skill. It's whether the system admits the middle is a pressure cooker or it pretends it's just a stepping stone. Second pressure is one that slowly eats your integrity. You are asked to enforce decisions you don't agree with. You sit in the leadership meetings, you argue team's case, you explain the risks. Sometimes you even win, but sometimes the decision still goes through. And then you are expected to walk back to your team and defend it, to present it calmly, to sell it, to make it sound reasonable. Here is why this destroys you. On the outside, you have to stay professional. On the inside, you are carrying conflict, frustration, and sometimes even guilt. You are smiling while dying inside. Do this once in a while and you can cope. But doing this repeatedly and something starts to erode. You stop trusting your own voice. You start feeling like a messenger for things you don't believe in. You begin to feel split between what you say and what you feel. When you are alone, you just swallow it. You keep the mask on and you carry the conflict in silence. But when you are supported, you have safe spaces to process that conflict without being labeled not a team player. Middle management breaks people not because they lack resilience, but because they are asked to live in quiet contradiction for too long. The third one is where nobody prepares you for. The moment you become a manager, your team starts seeing you as them. Yesterday you were peers, you shared jokes, you vented together, you were on the same side. Today you are on the same person, but the relationship has changed. People become careful around you. Conversations get filtered. Some trust disappears overnight, not because you changed, but because your role did. And here is why this destroys you. You no longer fully part of the team, but you are also not fully part of the senior leadership either. You are stuck in between and you belong nowhere. When you are alone in this, you have no safe relationships at work. You can't fully open up downward. You can't fully open up upward too. So you start carrying everything inside. When you are supported, you have a peer network of other managers who actually understand the reality. People you don't have to perform for. People who get it. Middle management is just a role change. It is a social identity shift. And if you don't have real emotional anchors, the isolation becomes unbearable. The fourth pressure is one that hits people with strong empathy the hardest. You absorb pain you can't fix. Your team comes to you with burnout, workload, family stress, unfair processes, broken systems. You listen, you care, and you want to help. But many times, you don't actually have the power to change the root problem. So you become the container of other people's pain with no real tools to solve it. Here why this destroys you. Over time, empathy turns into emotional overload. Caring starts to hurt and you carry stories home. You think about them at the night. You feel responsible for the things you don't control. When you are alone, you carry this emotional weight with no release. You become the dumping ground for the system's failures. When you are supported, you learn to build boundaries between listening and owning, between compassion and self-destruction. Good managers don't burn out because they don't care. They burn out because they care in systems. The fifth one is where managers start to feel quietly hopeless. You are accountable without authority. You are responsible for results, for delivery, for performance, for morale, and for outcomes. But you don't control budgets. You don't control headcount. You don't control strategy. You don't control timelines. Here is why this destroys you. No matter how hard you work, it feels like you are always failing someone. If the team struggles, it's on you. If the targets are not met, it's on you. If the morale drops, it's on you. When you are alone, you get blamed when systems fail you. When you are supported, leadership owns the structural constraints instead of pretending it's all about your management skill. This pressure creates chronic self-doubt. You start questioning your competence when the real problem is the design of the role, not your effort. The final pressure is the most invisible and the most painful. You have no safe space to be human. You can't fully open up to your team because you are supposed to be steady. You can't fully open up to the leadership either because you are supposed to be capable. So you end up performing strength in both directions. And inside you are carrying stress, doubt, fatigue and pressure without nowhere to put it. Here is why this destroys you. Emotional isolation is exhausting. Being surrounded by people, but to be having no safe space to be honest, slowly breaks you down. When you are alone, you suffer professionally and silently. When you are supported, you have peer spaces where you can speak honestly without fear of judgment and consequences. Strong leaders don't need to pretend they are invincible. They need places where they don't have to perform. Middle management does not fail people. Isolation does. Stop pretending promotion fixed everything when you are drowning in private. Because suffering in silence doesn't make you a strong leader. It makes you an isolated one heading toward burnout while everyone assumes you are thriving. Thinking you will figure out this management thing once you get better is a trap. Position itself is structurally impossible. That's like learning to juggle while people keep throwing you more balls. Problem is not your skill, it is the setup. Once you stop blaming yourself for the struggling with an impossible position, you can start building what you actually need. Support systems, boundaries, peer networks. You become a manager who survives by being honest about the reality, but not pretending it's sustainable. If you are a mid-career professional or manager tired of pretending the promotion solved everything, this channel is for you. Subscribe for strategies on managing the emotional weight of leadership, protecting your mental health in impossible positions, and building the support systems you actually need. I break down what actually helps you survive and lead without losing yourself. Real solutions for real management pressures, not feel-good leadership quotes.